Welcome to Two Tall Guys Talking Sales, where Kevin Lawson and Sean O'Shaughnessy cut through the noise to help you master sales management and sales success. In this episode, they tackle one of the most overlooked but critical tasks, finalizing compensation plans before the new year to keep your sales team motivated and aligned. You'll also hear why spreading growth evenly across your 3 or 5 year plan is far smarter than banking on a risky hockey stick surge at the end. Stay tuned for practical sales strategies and actionable insights that will set you and your team up for long-term revenue generation.
Welcome back to Two Tall Guys Talking Sales. This is Sean. Kevin, good to see you. We got a great episode coming up. So as we record this episode, it is starting to become fall. Now, it's not officially fall yet. We haven't triggered over that timeline yet, but you can see it in Cincinnati, Ohio, where Kevin and I both are. The trees haven't really started to change yet, but the kids are practicing football. They've maybe even played their first game or 2 or 3. NFL's ramping up, and all the kids are back to school. So I say all that, not because it's so much all these end of the year kind of things that you got to make your number and how you doing. You got 4 months left to go, 3 months left to go, 2 months left to go in your calendar year or your fiscal year. But the big issue is next year's coming. And the next year's going to be here already before you know it. We need to start thinking as sales leaders, as owners of companies, even as salespeople, we need to start thinking about next year. Because if I asked you to write out your 3-year plan, your 5-year plan, which everybody should have, next year knocks off that first year of that 3-year plan. So how are you doing? Are you 1/3 of the way through the plan? In case of a 5-year plan, are you 20% done? Because it's time to start thinking about it, figure out where you're at, and start planning for second year of that 3-year plan or that 5-year plan. Kevin, great to see you. What should we start with first on talking about this?
So for everybody who listens to this, and some of you give me a really hard time about this, but I think in terms of spreadsheets, which means I think in terms of lists. And as much as you and I talk about being next step obsessed, I want to tailor this conversation to being the list getting ready for next year. And we talk to salespeople, and we're leading salespeople. We talk about what is the next step. It's not get a meeting. The next step is an actual next step. But for sales leaders and owners thinking about next year and using the long range planning, we have to think, what is the next step in that journey? Our leadership plan to close, I'm using my air quotes here, close that deal that is growth in your business. So I like to think in terms of the list. And, what comes to mind really quickly is between now and the end of the year, whether you're listening to this in October or September, or if you're listening to this in 2026 in February, I want you to keep this in mind. Be planning ahead. So that means think about your compensation plans. Are they right? Are they driving the goals that you intended them to do? Are they building out the types of teams and attracting talent to your team that helps you achieve your goals? So the comp plan is a really important piece of your business. Even if you have updated it last year, you got to look at it every year to make sure it's still giving you as an owner or leader the right results. So comp plan is number one. Product timeline, product lifecycle. I think, Sean, you and I know I have in the past, sold product lifecycle software, so PLM software. You have products and offerings in your business that may need to be updated. 2 years ago, hardly anybody was talking about AI, but now it's a part of most conversation. Is your business readiness plan inclusive of AI, or a plan to adopt it or execute or leverage it to help you achieve your long-range goal? Realignments. I'm just working down my list here. You should have a plan for growth. If your plan is to grow 20, 30, 40% in the next 3 years, it should not be based on just grinding harder in your existing territories. How are you adjusting and scaling and helping your sales team win? You're not cutting their commission in half. Don't let their success be a slap on the wrist in terms of cutting their territory way down, but think about how you're going to empower them to grow and achieve your long-range goals. Go ahead and think about next year's quotas. That's an easy one. Be planning ahead. You're going to have a customer churn, attrition, acquisition, attainment. You're going to have something that goes on with your customers. So be thoughtful about how you're growing with your customers, or they're growing beyond you. we probably all, I'm thinking about all you listening out there, you've probably had a customer that outgrew you. It's unfortunate, but it happens. If you're in legal practice and one of your core customers decides to go international and you don't have an international law component to your practice, they're going to outgrow you. Same thing for accounting. Yeah, you have to have resources to go and grow with your clients. Sean, there's a couple more. Why don't you hit a couple more high spots, things like other departments and things. What does sales break when we grow?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point for the next one. And that's a good list. We should dig into some of those items and discuss them a little bit more. But one of the challenges that everybody has in their company is aligning the departments together. And I would assume that part of your 3-year goals, part of your 5-year goals as you grow is that you're going to grow evenly without a lot of stress on the other departments. So I'm not thinking about a solopreneur here in this case. I'm obviously thinking about a company with a couple salespeople, maybe half a dozen to a dozen salespeople, but also you've got products that you make or you resell. You got warehouses potentially that you manage. Are you thinking about as you grow your sales, your revenue, as your salespeople are doing better? Because let's face it, you probably have less than a 5% market share for what you sell. So you can grow and you need to demand that your salespeople are growing. But that means that the rest of the company has to change as well. That stress of growing causes things to change. Now, especially if you have departments of 1 or 2, because growing a department, maybe it's your warehouse management department, growing that department from 1 to 2, that's a big step. That's 100% growth. And how do you pull that off? And I'm picking on warehouse management. It could be any department at all. Any department that is small, 1 or 2 or 3 people, and we're going to grow. And so therefore we need another person in that department. How are you going to do that? And this isn't a podcast to solve that problem, but we do want our listeners to be successful. So therefore, think about how the sales growth is going to make the rest of the company grow and what that means. So let's go back to the early thing that you got to kind of do before you do a lot of other things. If you've listened to our podcast, and we will talk about this later, I think, but if you listen to our podcast for a while, you'll know that Kevin and I are pretty insistent that you're working on commission plans in November and getting them approved through all the people that you have to approve them with so that you can roll them out in December. I say December 1st, the first Monday of December, you should be handing the comp plans out. And those comp plans get 3 or 4 weeks for the salesperson to say, oh, wait a second, this thing scares me. And in case you screwed things up, at least they can get their head wrapped around it prior to January 1st when they're off and running. But before that, do you have the right people in the right place in your sales organization to do effectively? So I just want to dig into that one just a tad bit here. Is there a salesperson that they're just not going to be the right salesperson for next year? So as you've grown, as your product has increased, as your product portfolio has increased, those things that you offer to the customer, is that salesperson going to be, they're at the bottom of the list now, and next year they're going to be even farther to the bottom because maybe they just don't have some skills? So the first thing I think you have to think about is, do I have the right people in the right place in the company? Because I'm not saying that salesperson has to go. I'm saying maybe that salesperson needs to go to a different role within the company. Let's think about that. Does that make sense? Do my territories align with that 3-year, 5-year mission that I wrote a year ago that I'm now 1 year in? Do my territories align? We've brought out some new products. We've brought out some new services. Do the territories actually make sense for going after those goals? Maybe because of a new product that you brought out, a portion of your territory map, be that vertical alignment by industry or geographic alignment, I don't care how you're doing it. Maybe there's a territory that really can't take advantage of that brand new product because those types of customers are not in your territory. I'm thinking about if you provide services to that law profession that Kevin just talked about, and you have a territory that is very big city based for 1 or 2 of your salespeople, but then you have a territory that, let's face it, has a lot of rural towns and rural areas. Sure, there's some lawyers out there. Are they big enough to really take advantage of that new service that you had, as opposed to the manufacturer that's right next door to that lawyer in that small town? Do you have the right territory to take advantage of those new products, new services that you are now providing to achieve your 5-year or your 3-year growth plan? So Kevin, I talked a lot right there. Take it to the next step.
For everybody who's listening out there and their mind may have said, I don't do lawyer or professional services. What about me, the manufacturer? What about me, the products, goods, and local services? How does this apply to me? And my answer to that is, let's think about your serviceable market. When we start thinking about marketing, you've got total addressable, you got TAM, SAM, SOM, right? Service addressable, meaning who you could serve, and the service obtainable, your local market. If you've got a rapid delivery or rapid response, think plumbing, think local delivery, think commercial cleaning, you can't necessarily expand way beyond your geographic reach to reach your 3-year goal without having people in those geographies. So it may be less about an underperforming person on the road and more about an activation of a market. For me to grow 30%, can I grow where I am now by 30%, or do I have to expand? If I say, hey, I've got a hot shot delivery, how far can my truck go to be hot shot? If I have a 90-minute response promise, like thinking about your 3 uniques or your warranty, if you're an EOS company, what is your guarantee? If it's more than 60 miles away, a 90-minute response is probably not feasible. So just thinking about how you're going to grow not only becomes where are my products going to be sold and how will they be sold? It also will tie your commission plan to tie this conversation all the way together, but it will also come all the way back around to when we start to activate these new products, what are we cannibalizing? What products must go away? Or what must I do with my marketing team? What must we do to stack hands and say, hey, we're going to go achieve this part of our strategic growth plan by working with marketing and delivery and other departments of your business. So now we're starting to wrap our arms around when we're thinking about growth, and from now through the end of your calendar year or your budget year, there's other things that must happen that must be true for us to achieve our 3-year plan. And Sean, you said it really great. We were talking the other day and you said, hey, you don't want to have that 3rd year be your hockey stick. And I thought that was a really interesting point. And when you were explaining what you meant by that to me, you were like, hey, you don't want to be entering your 3rd year of your medium range plan, the 3-year goal, and be at 10 or 20% of the goal, meaning you have to grow by 40, 50% in a year to achieve your goal. So avoiding that late goal hockey stick becomes really valuable. Lean into that for me.
Yeah, I've seen this a lot where we have a 3-year plan, we have a 5-year plan, doesn't matter which one it is, where you've made the first couple years easy to get. Now, let's be honest, it's easier to grow small numbers, right? So the law of small numbers is a great example I just talked about a second ago. If I have 1 and I grow to 2 people in my department, now I've grown 100% in that department, right? I'm going to do a little bit of growth at the beginning of it because I can do that really easy. But I'm sure when I get to year 4, it's just going to be really easy because now I've got everything in place and we're going to grow 40% that between 4 and 5. Sure, that might happen. I've seen that happen because of my background in software and venture capital funded startups where we had to grow a little bit, prove out the market, and then we got a big funding of money and we were able to grow really fast then. But that's not the typical thing. And if you're not in a VC-based product market, then you can't pull that off. So think about linear growth. Think about, I got to do it on a regular basis. Growth is important, and growing your people is incredibly important. One of the things to grow your people and make them better is to make sure that they are communicating to peers and they're asking questions of peers. I remember throughout my career, I always had people in my group, a group that I considered my trusted advisors, my best friends, that I could go to and say, how do you do this? Sometimes I could do that with my boss, and sometimes I couldn't. So I do encourage everybody that's listening to our podcast to check out B2B Sales Lab, which is our B2B peer support community, where people can come on board. They can ask each other questions. They can say, how do I do this? Take a look at my marketing plan. Take a look at my growth plan that I did with EOS, or I have my EOS meeting coming up. Take a look at that and get honest feedback from their peers. You find out about B2B Sales Lab by going to B2B-sales-lab.com. We're going to talk more about growth. We're going to talk about it on this podcast. We're going to talk about it in the B2B Sales Lab. And so we'd really like you to come to us next week, where we'll talk more about growth and how to grow your company, how to be more successful. But until then, happy selling.
What an insightful episode today. I was especially struck by the discussion on avoiding the dreaded hockey stick growth trap. Sean and Kevin explained how too many companies underdeliver in the early years of a 3 or 5 year plan, only to saddle themselves with unrealistic growth expectations at the end. Their advice to pursue steady, linear growth instead of banking on a last-minute surge is a sales strategy that every leader can put into practice. And let's not forget the significant actionable item they shared. Finalize your compensation plans by December 1st. It's such a simple yet powerful step to ensure your salespeople head into the new year motivated, aligned, and focused on revenue generation. Don't wait until January. Use this insight now before the daily rush of business pulls you away. If you ever need help with sales management, revenue growth, or simply building a stronger team, reach out to Sean or Kevin. Their contact information is always in the show notes. And for those who want a community of peers to learn from, the B2B Sales Lab is the perfect place. It's designed to give salespeople and sales leaders real answers, shared resources, and the tools to hit quota with confidence. The link to join is right there in the show notes. Don't miss it. We'll be back with another powerful conversation next Tuesday afternoon. Same time, same place. Until then, happy selling.